thing does pull very hard.
If you love classic cars, then Donald loves you. Please make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to turn on your notifications, so that way you won't miss any of our widely varied video programs, including those with me and my friend Jay Leno. Also, follow us on Instagram at Audrain Auto Museum and Audrain Motorsport.
All right, we're now in the 2005 Mercedes-Benz DTM. It's German. What does DTM stand for?
Deutsche Tourenwagen Meisterschaft, the German touring car racing championship.
Which would be like our NASCAR?
Our NASCAR, exactly, but like our NASCAR was in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So actual cars that were related to the cars on the street. So no carburetors when the car was fuel injected.
Right.
No rear wheel drive when the car was front wheel drive, all of that.
Yeah.
And this is as close to an actual DTM racer as you could have for the street. They built 100 of these cars to commemorate the championship of Brent Schneider in 2003, the first of his 5 DTM championships.
And this still has the original tires on it too, doesn't it?
They said slightly newer tires, not 2005, but they're certainly not the performance tires that you'd want to have to exploit its total capabilities.
She goes really well. I mean,
yeah.
it's quite impressive. You know, as raw as I thought the AMG was, this is that's like a '59 Bonneville compared
exactly.
to this. Yeah.
When I first drove these two cars, I made the mistake of driving this one first, and then the Black Series, and I thought, oh, the Black Series is nice, but you know, I think that this is definitely the order in which to drive them. So it is very clear what the intent of this car is. You know, we talked a lot at the Black Series about that duality, to have a car that you could run your errands in and also take through the track. This is a car that is much less compromised for the street.
Right. Well, you know what surprised me? If you look at the outside of the car, the cooling vents to the brakes are fake. They're just there for look. They don't actually cool the brakes. You'd think it would be easier just to leave that feature in for the enthusiast who, not that you would ever need it on the street, but you might want to race this, and it would seem like it would be advantageous to have that cooling feature. But they paint it black, so it looks like they're functional.
Well, I think though that in reality, the brakes probably never get to a warm enough operating temperature that you actually wouldn't want to cool them, because then it would give you less braking capability for a car like this.
But does this have carbon fiber?
This does not have carbon fiber.
All right, so it's steel rotors anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. But yeah, I mean, I like steel rotors on the street. I mean, the whole carbon brake thing, how many people actually, you know, it's like when you buy a deep sea diving watch. This one goes to 700 feet. This one goes to 2,000. Give me the 2,000. You'll never go 2,000 feet in your life.
You're not even going to wear it in the rain.
You're lucky if you get over your head, you know. But people always feel, oh, I want that one, you know.
Exactly. Well, again, it's also, we talk about this a lot, about the horsepower and torque of cars, but especially horsepower. You know, compared to the 1,000 or 1,500 horsepower hypercars that you can buy, this has got 582 horsepower.
Right.
But you probably use more of those 582 horsepower than you ever would of the 1,000 horsepower in a Bugatti.
Yeah, it's funny because this car is probably almost 5 times the price of the AMG Black Series.
Right.
But they're both just as much fun on the road. I mean, you'll never take this thing anywhere near its limits, at least not without going to jail.
Exactly.
And sometimes the car you need is better than the car you want, you know? Like to me,
very well put.
When I get in that black AMG, that feels perfect. Just right, tough enough for the road, firm, good. This obviously a bit stiffer, So it's like kidney punches when you hit a, when you hit a punch,
Yeah.
it's like getting a kidney punch, which is okay, but I would rather not get punched in the kidneys, and I probably wouldn't push it that hard.
It has an immediacy, though,
It
that
does.
certainly does not share with the Black Series.
I know, and the more I drive, the more I'm seduced by it, and I realize I'm lying. I probably would want it. I do want this one. Yeah, I do want this one.
Yeah, this is.
I'm trying to talk with my head like, making sense-wise, blah, 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 blah. But no, this is, you want the best version of whatever it is you can get.
Exactly.
That's
If a Mercedes is sensible, this is a not sensible Mercedes. And there's something incredibly appealing about that, Sort of going against the grain.
It's like a Porsche. They build the ultimate car, and then they take stuff off of it and charge you more because it's the, how do you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it?
The Weissach.
Weissach, yeah. I mean, this thing does pull very hard.
No, it's absolutely astonishing.
This is what the English would call a Q ship, isn't it?
Yes.
It appears to be, a sedan of someone reasonably prosperous, a middle manager or something. It's got a few boy racer things on it, and then you realize, oh no, it's this is the real deal. This is the real deal. Look at that! Look at that steering.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah, just think it around corners.
Exactly. You could probably turn in its own length somehow.
Yeah.
And this car is supercharged, which I think that a powerful Mercedes should always be supercharged. You always think about the great compressors of the 1930s, and
Right.
There's that wonderful supercharger whine that you get as well.
It is the most blood-curdling scream. I got to drive the supercharged, the Count Trossi car.
Count Trossi, yes.
And you get no more than, you get 10 seconds max before you start doing damage. But it's all, this primal scream, it is so unbelievable. And it feels all of a sudden you're boosted to 180 horse versus 120 or something, maybe 150. But I think a lot of it's psychological. It's just making this screaming banshee noise. It's really quite fantastic.
Yeah, you think about the performance of the modern hybrids that use the electric motors and
Right.
the internal combustion gasoline engines to add that bit of boost. And I always love the designations of those Mercedes where they'd have the horsepower in the sort of standard mode and then
Right.
the supercharged mode.
Right.
It's this is what you have in your pocket, sort of push to pass.
Right.
And what I really love about this car too is the fact that certain cars that are built to honor.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It's just cut the wheel. Nothing. It just goes.
Nothing in between. There's no sneeze room in there.
No, it just pivots.
It's cars that are built to honor race cars, but just sort of have the look of the race car, but not the feel of it.
Right.
This has all of the feel. I've never driven a DTM car, but this is all the feel that I imagine it has, but in a totally usable way.
Right.
I love that sound.
Just a nicely balanced automobile. I love this smaller wheel. I'm sure a great deal of thought and work went into designing this wheel as well. And no matter what gear, I'm not downshifting. It'll just pull.
Yeah, it's got
You
bags
downshift.
and bags of torque.
It should pull even harder. It's just clawing at the ground.
Exactly.
It's like a lion on linoleum,
Exactly. No, it is extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary.
Do they even have linoleum anymore? I don't even know.
Of course they do. Absolutely. Yes,
Is it
I've got
still-
linoleum in my
Is
house.
it still called linoleum?
It's still called linoleum.
It sounds like one of those things from the, it's like icebox or Frigidaire.
Well, there is vinyl flooring, and then there is linoleum.
Right.
Registered trademark.
Oh, here's this guy coming this way
Yes,
now.
exactly.
I just saw him a minute ago. But it's so funny. This has the paddle shifters, which was as quick as you could get back in the day.
Right.
Now it just feels like, what's this millionth of a second? Why is it taking so long? compared to modern shifts, bang, right now.
That's just before you think about it.
Yeah.
Which again reminds me so much of another old technology, which I absolutely love, the pre-selected gearbox.
Right.
You know, it shifted so much more quickly than you could in a manual gearbox in the period, and I think that it could have been the absolute world beater had not the automatic transmission been developed
Right.
so quickly and so well. The early automatics, I prefer a pre-selected gearbox to any of the early slush boxes, that's for sure. That's the other thing, when you think about sort of the access to performance, well, okay, let's compare this. We like to compare things to different ages. Compare this to a 300 SL.
Yeah, this would be the 300 SL of the period, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That kind of effortless performance. I mean, you know, in the mid-1950s, to have the performance of the 300 SL
Yeah. Yeah.
was otherworldly, and this is.
And it really is the effortlessness of
Yes.
it. You know, in the old days, when you watch them, when I was with Sterling Moss and got to drive his famous SLR, and well, first they warm it up on hot plugs.
Right.
You got to change the spark plugs before you even start it. Okay, then get it warm. Okay, now you switch to the colder for whatever it is. Switch to the other plugs. Okay, but just a lot of work just to get it to that point. Now you just get in and you go, you know. I've mentioned this all the time in these things. When you bought a Chrysler Hemi in '66, you got a 90-day warranty. You got 90 days. And if they had proof you had taken it to a drag strip, you avoided. Now you buy a Challenger and they go beat the hell out of it, you know. See if you can
Exactly.
make it, you know.
It's unbelievable. All right, let me take my turn
Okay.
behind the wheel. Yeah, this is everything I remember this car to be. And of course, the one thing that you can't say about this car, because of its very uncompromising interior, is it does lack that sort of silent cushion
Right.
that the Black Series had.
You know, there's a psychological advantage to driving a car. We were talking about power to weight ratio in motorcycles.
Right.
And the sensation of speed is so different. You know, I was at Circuit of America. We were trying to do Suzuki's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I got my motorcycle. Now, I've been riding motorcycles my whole life, but not. And I got on the straightaway, and I got it wide open. I look at the speedometer. I'm doing 165. I go, man, this thing is fast. And then as I look down the track, I go, well, there's a turn coming up. I said, you know, I've never gone 165 around a turn in a motorcycle in my life. I mean, this is like crazy. Something right through here. Well, at least so I slow down a little bit, you know, and I get, okay. I get down to around maybe 95, I lean and I go, oh, whew, I made it to the turn. I said, but whereas in a car, that wouldn't be the least bit nerve-wracking to me.
Exactly.
Even though the chances of harm are probably equal.
Right.
On a motorcycle, I wouldn't hit anything, but I would slide along the pavement. In a car, I would roll or, you know.
And also, again, as the world well knows, I'm not a motorcycle rider. But one of the things that I would imagine, and I've heard from people that ride, and you can either corroborate this or completely disagree, it's also about control. You feel what a motorcycle is going to do before it does it. And that's what I like about lots of old cars and certain modern cars, because they give you that sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, in some cars, you can be in over your head without having any idea that you're near there.
Yeah, that's... Well, that was always the great fear with the 911. You know, I never really knew what they were talking about until we started pushing 911s around Willow Springs one day really hard, and then whoop, and whoa!
When did that happen?
Yeah, I'm doing 5 spins. What did I do? Well, I just wasn't on the throttle enough in the corners. You know, years of driving front-engine cars, I would just I lift
a little and then you know apply the power. Right.
Snapped around and boom. I realized I should have stayed on the power all the way. You know, but yeah, it's funny.
And there are lots of people, lots of Porscheophile friends of mine, who maintain that a lot of the mystique and the magic of Porsche was lost when it became a car that anybody could drive. You know, the idea of mastery in a 911, early short wheelbase 911 was quite something, and especially when you get to a 930 turbo, it's like, you know, if you can drive one of these fast and not scare yourself witless, you know, then you know what you're doing.
And you really don't see the advantage of a car like this until you can put it on a track. You know, I was fortunate enough to drive one of the prototype LFAs. Toyota brought it to my garage. It had the V10, and it looked very Japanese car-like. You know, it wasn't outrageous styling. It was attractive, but you might think it was a Lexus on the road if you didn't know. You know, you wouldn't notice right away. So I drove it, and I thought, well, the V10, it's a great engine. And then I went to Japan, and I drove it on Fuji Speedway. And wow, what a great! And then I went, oh my God, this is what that car just. It just screamed at like 9,500 RPM, some crazy thing like that, and just flying around that track. It shifted so quick because I was using all the power all the time, and I thought, wow, this is what this car is supposed to do. You know, something like this, you're driving around in 55-60% of the power all the time. You're not really using all the power all the time.
Yeah, it's astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. And so easy in a way that, you know, you couldn't imagine in a performance car not long ago. That you know, think about again the whole concept of the AMG cars in Mercedes, and we were talking about the sort of the reference to muscle cars and stuffing the big engine in the small shell, and how undrivable so many of the muscle cars were unless you were pointing in a straight line.
Right.
And this, you don't get any of that sense that the car has got more power than it's capable of. If anything, probably this chassis can handle probably another 60 or 80 horsepower.
Yeah, easy. And when this was built, close to 600 horsepower was the end of the world. Oh my God, those, you know.
And zero to 62 in under 4 seconds. I mean, that's
that was I mean, I always use the first number that impressed me. Most cars were anything under 0 to 60 in 10 seconds was fast.
Exactly.
MGs were 15.2 and that kind of number. The Coronet, the Dodge Hemi 66 did it in 6.3 seconds. I went, oh my God. That just seemed almost unbelievable. Now that's like a Volkswagen.
Right, exactly. Yes, my minivan will accelerate from. It's an extraordinary thing. So in exchange for a few rattles in the carbon fiber door panel and a seat with a lot less cushioning, I think that my choice between these two cars is still this one. I mean,
yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive. But you know, we're talking about 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Which is about what we would drive this car. You know, they say that somebody said that was the average driving time for a Ferrari when people bought it.
20 minutes at a time.
Well, they'd go out and they'd run somewhere for 20 minutes, stop, have something to drink, drive, and then go back. You know, they weren't all-day automobiles. I think on an everyday basis, the standard AMG black is probably the way to go. And this, if you want to just blast off somewhere and have a lot of fun, well, this is the one you want.
I like that phrase. I'm actually going to appropriate it.
Which one?
All-day automobile.
Yeah.
Because I always have this thing about driving cross country. Would I drive this car across the country?
Right.
And yeah, I would drive this car across the country. It'd be a very different trip than the trips I would normally plan. But I like the concept of an all-day car, and you're right, the Black Series is definitely, between this pair, the all-day car. But if I'm going to drive for a half a day,